All right, hello again. We are now recording. I tried not to make the quizzes tricky or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward, especially now. The tricky business comes later. But let's review these because we did have some that were, I don't think anyone missed number one. You need to display only unique combinations. We know that's distinct, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, you need to display employees whose salary ranges from 3,000 to 30,000 to 50,000. Which one of these should you use? And this is a range, so between and. I think everyone's pretty good with that. You like to determine the orders placed by customers who live in the city of Chicago. You write the partial select statement, select order ID, order date, total from orders. Um, and we did cover the where clause. So yes, it was basically where city is equal to, and yes, you do have to watch. This is a string, so that'd be an error. And this would be one that you want to validate in the developer. It has to be the last one here. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
No. So just, we will, I will validate this. So I'm going to take the partial query, just copy it and move it to the developer, right? And we just want to add that where clause, this one, just to verify. And so if you run that, oh, where did I go wrong here? Well, maybe oh, actually, we don't have a table. So this one would not have helped. We don't have a table name orders. Um, so I thought I checked all those, but uh, you could have corrected me, but this would be the right selection of that query. It has to be surrounded by single quotes. So I'll make a note of that. I try to make sure these are all tables that we have in our little, that one got by me. So, all right. Did anyone miss that one? Number three?
No.
Okay, I didn't think anyone did, but just checking. All right, number four, if the employees table has the following columns, which it does, and you want to write a select statement to return the employee's last name and department number for employee number 176, which one would you choose? Now this one we could validate in the SQL developer. Select last name, department ID. We want it, what columns? Last name, department number, and employee number. So last name, employee ID. Yeah, I should check these before. Okay, last name and department number from, okay. Oh, I have to learn how to read. Last name, department ID from employees where employee ID is equal to 176. Last name, employee ID from employees where employee ID equals. So yeah, it has to be the equal sign here. First name, that's the third selection. Last name, department ID. So the first one is the one with the right syntax because you have the equal sign. So on this one, we can validate in the developer just to make sure we're not doing anything crazy. So if we run that, then yes, last name, employee ID, piece of cake. All right. Number five, you want to produce a report that provides last name, first name, and hire dates. Those hired between March 1st, 2000 and August 30th, 2000. So if you read through all the selections, we didn't cover the group by, so that one probably, you should have skipped right over that one. So another range, and remember you can use ranges on dates. So I would definitely look for a between and that's the second choice. And let's see, there's, you can use greater than equal to and less than equal to for the same. All right, so let me ask you all which one of these is correct? We know it's not the first one, so B, C, or D, which one is correct?
B.
Bravo.
Yep. B. E.
Does everyone agree?
E.
B or, what did I hear, B or D? B
Bravo.
is Bravo? Yes. So
What?
once again, the best way to check these is just, you do have time to use the good old SQL developer just to make sure everything is kosher. And if you run that, oh, that gets no results. Why is that?
Because there's no results to be given.
Aha. So there's no one that matches that criteria, right, in our little little database. Did that trip anyone up? Did anyone go crazy because they're like, wait, what's going on? There has to be something wrong. I don't think I purposely made that a very tricky question, but yeah, if you wanted to validate the others. So how did you choose? Did you all take a look at basically the table itself to see if there's anyone in between those dates? Because if you run any of these queries, let's say you run the other one, D as in Delta, doesn't give you an error, but that has no results as well. Well, that's the logic is dumb. That's, we're going from August 2000 to March, and it's cyclical or sequential. It's not going to go backwards. So, that one's not right. And
Mhm.
the third one, greater than or equal to March. So why not the third one?
Yeah.
Why not this one? Why is that one not correct? Anyone?
Is it because the and is in the from? And
Well, you have,
There's no where clause.
yeah.
you have select last name, first name, hire date from employees and hire date. Yeah, that's just wrong syntax.
Mhm.
So you know that one is not going to work. All right. So maybe the SQL developer would not have helped you with that one, but you know that the Bravo selection is the most accurate.
Mhm.
Which two statements would select? And this was two. I know a lot of you only selected one, but there was two answers in here that were correct. So which two statements would select salaries greater than or equal to 2,500 and less than or equal to 3,500? So looking through these very carefully, we want greater than or equal to, right? 2,500 and less than. So this one would work, and this one, right? C and D. Does everyone see that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
between and is the same, basically the same notation as using the greater than, less than, etc. So yeah, several people did not choose both of those, and it would say two. All right, which of the following where clauses would not select 10 hours? Where hours between 10 and 20, that would not. So that one would be yes. Where hours is less than or equal to 10, that would be yes. Where hours are in 8, 9, 10, that would be yes. So then the less than, greater than symbols together like that is not equal to. Hopefully you remember that. So the last one is where hours is not equal to 10. So that would be the correct response. All right, so you need to display all employees whose last name of any length start with the letters SM, which where clause. So that's using the like. And with the like in the single quotes, so if it starts with SM, then that. So the first one, basically that says SM is at the start. And if you put the percent sign before, that basically is indicating end with SM. If you put the underscore, that's a one character representation, so that's not right. Now, I don't know if did the last one trip anyone up? Because that's technically correct. But fortunately, the alpha selection is more correct. And because this would only be, and most of the last names are more than just one letter after the SM. So that's the logic there. All right, what will be the result of the select statement? Select last name salary plus 300 from employees. It will display last name, salary, and the results of adding 300 to the salary of the first employee. Well, I don't think it's really limited to the first employee, right? So it'll display your last name, salary, and results of adding 300 to the salary of all the employees. Yeah, I like that choice. Display your last name, salary, and the number 300 for all employees. No. Display your last name, salary, all employees who have salary. So it's obviously Bravo. All right. Write a query, and I think everyone did pretty well in this. There's a couple people that forgot the name of it or didn't include the complete name of the table. And it's just greater than basically select the last name, salary from employees where a salary is greater than 12,000. Pretty straightforward. And then this one was just a concatenate. And did anyone miss this one? I know there's a couple of syntactical issues, but basically you want to concat the last name, concat the double pipe, single quote, comma, space, single quote, concat, and then job ID. And you want to add an alias. So everyone did that as employees and titles. So that's the quiz. Not a big deal. There was still quite, there's some variations in the scores basically reflected it. So attention to detail is one of the things that you really need to be aware of. And another person not here. Okay, let's move on. Now we're going to go into module 3. We're just going to continue to build on our select or our projected way of querying our tables. Hopefully you're getting used to just reading scenarios and creating the appropriate select statement. This is one of the things that you'll see a lot of. We're going to talk about logical comparisons in this first section, and then the precedent or the rules of precedence. Basically, it helps you to understand how the query, how you move through the query. SQL is a little bit different, or SQL, when you kind of human version read through the query. So we're going to evaluate logical comparisons and restrict rows, based on 2 or more conditions. And that's basically part of the where clause. Apply the rule of precedence to determine the order in which expressions are evaluated. All right. So our purpose, not too many things in life depend on just one condition. Yes, who came up with these reasons? It's coming out of Oracle. They have their own. Maybe I'll change them one day, but yeah. So for instance, if you want to go to college, you probably need good grades and the tuition to pay for it. If you have extra money, you could either save it or spend it. We mostly spend it, don't we? Yeah. And if you want to go to the movie, you may not want to go this weekend. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, forget it. Maybe I should include that. The average cost of a ticket to the Super Bowl this year was about $7 grand. So have at it. So the range was just under 1,000 to up to 100 and over 100,000. So there you go. All right. So on SQL, it is often desirable to restrict rows returned by a query based on 2 or more conditions. That's essentially what we're trying to get to here. So as a manager of a fast food restaurant, you may need to know the names of your staff who are cooks and who are order takers. You don't need to want to enter the entire staff list. You just want, yeah, a subset. And this is where we get our whole idea of conditional operators. Yeah, you saw the and with the between, basically the between and the other conditions, but now I'm going to describe them a little clearer. So the three that we're going to mostly deal with is, as far as the operators, and, not, and or. And these are primarily the ones that you can faction in your select queries and other queries as well when we get to those. Right, so logical conditions, basically they combine the result of two component conditions to produce a single result. For example, to attend a rock concert, you need to buy a ticket. Yes, dumb. So both conditions are met, and that's the and. And both conditions have to be true for basically the result to be true. Another logical condition is the or, and you guessed it, either one or the other condition is true. If an employee meets either of these two conditions, the employee gets a raise. Yeah. So let's add an or. Remember, the logical operators combine the results of two or more. I said that before. And basically the result is returned only if the condition is true. And returns true if both are true. Yeah, logic tables, and or returns true if either of the conditions are true. Now you do have a not, and sometimes you may need to use that logical operator, and it returns true if both the conditions, or if the condition is false. And you have to kind of think about that a little bit to see, well, when would I use a not? Well, actually there's an appropriate way to form a query so you have not. Maybe you want one condition and not the other. All right, let's extrapolate these a little bit. Take a look at the end as far as the query. You've seen these already, so I'm just providing some examples. So in this query, basically we're selecting the last name, department ID, and salary from employees where department ID is 50 and the salary is greater than 12,000. And we get King, Kokar, and Dahan. Woohoo. And here's another one. We want to select the last time hire date of job ID from employees where a hire date is greater than, that means everything after January 1998. And the job ID is like this essay that sells in the sales department. So we get Zotke, Taylor, and Grant. All right, let's move right to the or operator. If the where clause uses or, then one or the other condition has to be true. Be very careful. I will warn you, you have to kind of read the requirements very closely to use either of these logical operators, because sometimes you'll mix them up, but you'll get a result, but it may not be the correct result. So just be aware of that. All right, so select and really read the conditions. And you'll see that a lot. You see that in assignments, you'll see that in the midterm and the final, where you just have to make that determination, just fair warning. So here, you read through the query, select department name, manager ID, location ID from departments where location ID is 2500 or the manager ID. So you see here in the results, we have shipping with a manager ID of 124. So that satisfies the condition, but the location ID is 1500. And then sales, the manager ID is 149, but yeah, the location, so that's why it returns both of those. Make sure you understand how that works with the or, because sometimes that can become a little confusing. Like, so one or the other conditions must be true to have the result be match the requirements. All right. And then the not operator will return rows that do not satisfy the condition. So in some instances, not necessarily in our little database, you may use the not, to filter a list because you want everything else but, whatever you're requiring. So we're returning department name and location ID for all the departments not in these locations. So, and we have 3 of them: shipping, IT, sales. Done. So that's a little bit shorter than doing an in, maybe 1500, 1400, 2500. And yeah, the whole literal way of approaching this, maybe that's a little cleaner or more efficient. So it's not, it returns the condition when the where clause is not true or false. All right. So you're probably wondering, so yeah, we know that now. So what happens first? What's the rules of precedence? And it's very important to understand these. Oh, let me pause for a minute. And someone is not going to be here. All right. All right. So with the rules of precedence, this is how they occur. And we're basically dealing with the select statement. So the order that they occur, and I'm throwing out an example query here with in and or, like all of these crazy things. So luckily when things get complicated, there are basic rules. Okay, just like your arithmetic rules, like plus minus multiplication division, that always happens first when the operators, then concatenation, then any type of comparison, the less than, greater than, then is null, is not null, then like, and not, and between, and then not, and or. Remember, or is always last on the order of precedence. If we're looking at the logical operators, it's usually is not, then and, then or. All right. So this is where you need to be. Well, there's several ways to accomplish some of the tasks, but the first thing you want to consider is simplify your approach. So in some instances, especially with our simple database, you probably don't need a very complicated query. And this is what I'm trying to state here. Let's say we're looking at returning first names that start with C, so you're obviously going to use a like, and last names that end with S, and so that's an and. So, and if you read through the requirements here, so first the and, well, so looking at that query, so the first thing we know that the and condition is evaluated because that's higher on the precedent. So department ID in here and first name like C. So that it's always going to return that if those conditions map. And then the or is you operated on last, and then the last thing it's going to look at in this case is that the last name ends with an or has an S in it. Yeah, let me say that right. Has a lowercase s. And so you see that all of these results satisfy that requirement. They're in 50 or 80 one, but you see here, Shelley is not in 50 or 80, but let's see. First name, why did Shelley get on here? Yeah, that's a good question. Why do we have Shelley on here? What condition does Shelley match?
I think it's because her last name Higgins ends with S.
There you go.
So that's why they were included.
So that's why you see it, because that's an or. So Shelley, even though she's not in 50 or 80, and her name doesn't start with C, but her last name ends in S. And the same, well, Kevin's in 50. Let's see another outlier. Bruce is in 60, but he has an S in his last name, Ernst, because that is an S anywhere in the name there. Got it?
Mhm.
All right. All right. And I just explained that. So you do have to be very careful. The one thing I do want to suggest, if you're confused about what happens when, just like math, you can surround your where clause conditional operators with parentheses. This will change it because everything inside the parentheses will happen first. And in this case, I kind of tricked you a little bit. I switched to or and the and. That's why the results are different. So it's going to always process this or first because it's in the parentheses. I just wanted to make sure you saw that over this query here. Well, yeah, because this one, the and's going to go, the and will be processed first over the or. And then in this one, so the suggestion here is that if you have a question the best thing to do is just, if you want, and you do have to test this too. If you want, what do I want to happen first? What condition do I want to check first? So just surrounded by parentheses, you can do that. It's very simple. It eliminates any confusion about the order that things occur. Okay. Any questions about that before we end our first section? Make sense?
Mhm.
Cool. So our terminology for this first section, and or not, the logical operators, and then the order of precedence or precedence rules. And once again, I will warn you, if you don't pay attention to things like what's happening when, you may think your results are, and this is where you really have to pay attention to what you're trying to accomplish with your query. You may think it's fine because you don't have errors, but the result may be incorrect. So be aware of that. All right, moving on to section 2, sorting rows for objectives. Basically, construct a query to sort, and we're talking about ascending and descending order, alpha, A through Z, numerical, 0 through whatever. And then essentially have that added to our as far as the order of precedence, within your where clause as far as filtering, excuse me. And then construct a query to order results set using column aliases. You already know this, and it makes things a little bit easier, but especially when you're dealing with complex database schema, using aliases is always fine because you can always pick a name that you understand. And then construct a query to order results set for a single or multiple columns. Yes, you can order on either a single column or multiple columns. All right, so the purpose, by nature, most of us, I don't think I need order in my life. My life is all about disorder. Yeah, I'm okay with that. But most of us need some kind of order. But yeah, we have to get up and wake up and take a shower. Yeah, whatever. So imagine if time you had dinner, you had to look in every kitchen drawer or cabinet to find a knife and a fork. Well, I do that anyway. So, well, no, I don't. Well, if I'm looking for a plastic knife, yeah. But anyway, ordering, grouping, and sorting makes finding things easier. We're going to help you do that. Biologists group animals in phyla. Astronomers order brightness of stars by magnitude. Java programmers organize code in classes. Yeah, I don't know if they organize anyway codes in classes, but so our everyday lives are ordered in many situations. Library books, grocery store shelves, documents stored physically or digitally, mostly digitally now, right? How many of you have paper file folders at home with documents? Oh, okay, you guys are still in the paper days.
There's just certain documents that are still done on paper, or older ones I might need to reference. So easiest to just keep them in a file folder.
Well, you can digitize everything now, right?
Fair enough.
So you don't
Just
really
haven't
need to
really
have
felt
paper.
like doing it.
So yeah, well, you can save a tree or two if you stop using all that paper.
Fair enough.
All right. So sorting results is a convenient feature of Oracle. Basically, we give you a way to organize your results, and I'm going to introduce you to this clause, which is, by the way, named order by, a very useful way to organize or order your results. All right, so what is this order by clause? Information is sorted in ascending order. It's familiar to most of us. We count 0 to 10 if we want by ascending. So 1, 2, 3, and then alpha. Those are the key, but we may want to continue to keep things ordered, in a manner that we understand. So names and phone contact lists. Yeah, I actually changed that. That used to say names in the phone book. So how many of you have phone books now? So no. So I had to change that to contact lists. Emails by senders, product categories in an online store. Yeah, this is what we're used to, right? This is the type of digital ordering that we run across. So we do have the order by clause to order data, and it can be used in several ways. And So a couple things you need to know right off the bat. When you use the order by clause, its default sort order is always ascending. And basically, if you look at anything that you would, even your queries aren't ordered, but so numeric values are lowest to highest, and date values are displayed earliest to later, and then character values are in alpha order from A to Z. Null, your biggest enemy when it comes to organization, is always either displayed last when in ascending and first in descending, and it'll drive you nuts. And you're like, what's going on with this null? You do have some ways to deal with that. You can actually select, there's a statement or keyword, null first specifies that null or the null values are returned before all other values, and then null last, which is what I used to use all the time, just push those nulls to after everything. So those are statements that you can actually include, and we'll talk about those later. All right, so here's an example. So take a look at this, select last name, hire date from employees, order by hire date. So there's no, basically a specifier at the end of the order by, and I'll show you the syntax. But the default to this is ascending, so earliest date to latest. So we go from 87 to 2000. All right. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now, if we add the keyword descending or DESC, which stands for descending, basically it just reverses the order. And so we have the latest at the top all the way to the earliest at the bottom. All right. Sometimes that's very, very useful when you have some type of manipulation of the data. All right, so I'm using an alias here, basically to match the list of dates. So instead of just hire date, I wanted to say date started. And aliases are just, remember, that's just an alias of the column title to make it easier to understand what's in that date. But you see here, we're also using an ascending order. So we're starting from the earliest to the latest with that column. All right, very, very clear example. You can also sort with other columns or multiple columns. We'll get to that. And you can sort on columns that are not listed in your select query. So we have employee ID first name from employees where employee ID is less than 105, but we're ordering by last name. And you see last name is not included in the result columns. Although you may not know these individuals' last name, but maybe I've never used this type of query before, but I've never had anyone not want to see the column that was ordered by, because you don't really know if this is even in any order or not. But the key here is that you can order by columns that is not a part of your selected result columns. Okay. All right, order of execution. So the order of execution in the select statement. This is important. So how does the select statement actually work? And you will see this later. So the from clause is evaluated first. So this is where it validates the table. If it's in your schema, so if you have select column from table, if that table is not there, you'll notice you always get an error. And then the where clause, believe it or not, the clause that's optional is evaluated second when it's there. So basically it validates the table, and then it validates if the where clause is accepted in that table, and then the select statement or the select clause or the columns. So from the table, where the restriction, and then the select, and then finally the order by, which kind of makes sense. You really need to know the other information about your select before it can be ordered. So, and generally, if there's an issue with your select query, it's always mostly that either the table is not there or you misspelled the table, because that's always checked first. And generally, this is where most of the errors occur in your select statement, in the from clause and the where clause. But this is the order of execution. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. All right, so getting back to what I was saying before, you can't sort by multiple columns. It can be a little tricky, but you just need to know, let's say you want to have this kind of dual sorting where you sort by or order by last name and then first name. So you have the last name put in order first, and if there happen to be someone with the same last name, then your first name would be ordered. But so some criteria here, there's no limit to the number of columns, but be very careful. If you go right down a rabbit hole if you have like more than 4 columns to order by. As a matter of fact, I think it becomes truly a representation of disorder. You use more than like 4 columns, but you can order by multiple columns. Here's an example. I'm ordering by the department ID, and you see they're nicely in order. But you see here we have several employees, 2 and 20, and then we have several in department 50. You notice that the department ID is ordered nice from 10 to 50, and then the last names, wait a minute, they're not in order, but Whalen is in department 10, Faye is in department 20, and Harstein, that's an alpha order, right? F and H. And then Davies, Matos, Morgos, Raj, and Vargas, nice alpha order. So you have an order by department ID and then last name, multiple column order. All right, makes sense? So we have a numerical order and an alpha order. Remember, don't just look at the last name because that is not ordered by the last name. What would happen if we were to reverse these? Put last name and then the department ID second. What would that order look like?
The last name would be first and then the department ID in the table.
So who would be first on the last name side then?
Davies.
Right. And then who would be second?
Faye.
Yep. So know your alphabet. And then if we put the department ID, basically because there's not. All right. So, well, let me ask. Okay, so we're going to order by last name. We got Davies and Faye, and then let's see, who's next? Matos?
Mhm.
Or no, Harstein. Harstein would be next, right?
Mhm.
But it really wouldn't make any sense, right? Because we don't have anyone of these with the same last name, right? So we would just have an alpha order for the last name, right? It wouldn't really, the department ID wouldn't make any sense, correct?
Correct.
With this example. All right. I did come up with another example, and and you can do this. You can associate a specifier as far as the order to that column. So we're going to order by the department ID descending and then last name. So we're just reversing the order of the department ID. And now we have still Davies, Matos, Morgos, Raj and 50, and Vargas and 50, and Faye and Arstein. They're still in their order with Whalen at the last because of the descending order. So yes, you can you can associate with ascending or descending per that column name. And remember the default without any indicator, and you can use ASC for ascending, but it's not necessary because the default is ascending. Excuse me.
So we would have to put descending after each column name for it to actually descend.
Right. If you want the last name to be descending or reverse to order, you would have to put it, even if you had it here after last name, if you didn't have it after department ID, that would be ascending.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Our terminology for order by, for this section, the order by clause, ascending, descending. And remember, ascending is default, and the syntax for it is just ASC, as I indicated before. And then the order of execution of your select statement. That's basically your select statement. So it's from where select, and then order by. Okay, now we're going to introduce you into functions. Well, this is going to be kind of representative. I don't know if we're going to dig deep into it tonight, but functions, and those of you that are programs probably can guess, functions are something that you can call that does a lot for you. So what we're going to look at as far as the objectives, identify appropriate applications for single role functions, and I'll identify that here in a second. Classify a function as a single or a multiple role. Differentiate between single and multiple role or multi-role functions. All right. Well, here's our purpose and our reason. When cash or card is read by a vending machine, something happens. We did the twine. Yeah, I changed that. It used to be coins and all that. So how many of you use coins in vending machines now? Probably not many of you. So you just whip out your card, tap it, and you're good to go. Anyway, so a transaction is processed internally by the machine. You tap your card, you select your item, it comes down the chute. Your funds are inputted, and then you select an output. So this is all about inputting something and receiving an output. So the machine performs a function, and then the function is dispensing your item, right? And then, well, I don't think we worry about change anymore since we're using our card. I'll have to take that out. And unless you ask for a refund, and I think you're just out of luck at that point. You just might as well take what you ordered. All right. So in Oracle, there are many, many functions. You're going to learn all about the functions, what they do, how they can help, how you can shorten, basically create more efficient SQL queries, etc. The function are used to manipulate data, and it's essentially defined as a small program that forms a specific action on a value or a column, or just something that you want it to produce as far as output. Functions are all about input, and you throw input into the ether, which is a function, and you create output. But one thing I do want to point out the terminology here, function, you're inputting an argument. That term, you'll see that again. So function of both input and output. Input is referred to as an argument. And this, if you're going to go into coding, you'll always hear argument, you'll hear parameters, but arguments are the items that represent a value that you're inputting into a function, usually. And in our vending machine example, our funds are our input. Our vending machine is the function, and our item selected is our output. Okay, getting into Oracle, it has two distinct types of functions. You have a single role function and a multi-role function. A single role function takes a single input and produces a single output. A multi-role function, and those are roles in your table, will take multiple rows, and it may be records, it may be something different, and then produces a single output. Remember that. Multiple rows, single output. And you'll see what I mean when I get to the examples. So there are different types of single row functions, including character, number, date, and conversion functions, which is what we're going to address first. And as I said, you take take an argument, put it in the function, which is usually enclosed in parentheses, and it creates an output. Multi-row function can manipulate a group of rows to give one result. And we're going to get into aggregation and all that fun stuff. And these functions are also known as group functions. And we're going to cover that in more detail next week. But basically, you take a group of items from a record, usually, and like a sum, for example. That's jumping ahead a little bit, but that's what you do. So here's some single row functions. I'm adding some nice pictures for you. These are the ones that are used for conversion. Basically, you're converting a data type. If you want to convert it from a date to, and really, to be honest, it's not used that much anymore, because you have languages like Python that will assume things based on the context of your code. And that includes data too. So if you're wanting a string to be manipulated, then it will treat that data as a string, but we're not going to go into all that. You're actually going to literal or explicitly indicate what you want to convert. So to create further a further explanation, you can perform calculations such as rounding numbers, specifying decimal places, all these things in format that will become very helpful. And remember the whole thing about case sensitivity. You can make sure that you can control the case of your character or your strings. So there's uppercase and lowercase functions. You can convert dates to numbers if you want to display it that way. It's based on the type of format that you're looking for in your output. Just remember that. These conversion functions are very useful. Let's say if we want to indicate a number that should be some type of monetary value, you can use a conversion function to do that. So once again, the single row function takes one argument, or actually one or more argument, and return a single result per row. And here's the key. Let me say that again. So single row essentially operates on one row. Or you can send multiple rows, but it's going to operate on one row, create a result for that one row at a time. And that can be a little confusing, but we'll get to an example of that. So applying single row function to 12 rows will create 12 results. And you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. I will show you what that means. Excuse me. So to summarize the single row function, you can manipulate data, you can accept arguments and return one value, you can return one result per row, and you can modify the data type. And they can be nested, which means you can run a function within a function. And we're going to get to that. So don't panic about those. I'm going to show you some examples now. All right, so here we're actually using the lower, which is a function that will change whatever's in the as far as data in that particular column to all lowercase. So select lower last name from employees. As you see, all of our employees and their names, and they're all first initial uppercase, but they're now all lowercase. All right. Can everyone read to that function and see the results? You notice that it's performing a single row task on every row in our table, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're going to look at another example. We're going to round our commission percentage. Remember, round just basically rounds it to the next. These are round down or round up based on the number that's represented. And so we're selecting this commission percentage. And this one here, we're going to talk about this, so don't panic. Basically, it's going to round it to the next, decimal point. And I will delineate or describe exactly what that means. And the reason why we're using it is not null. If you look at the data in that commission percentage column, most of it is null except for the salespeople. They work on commission. So it's just going to round to one place. Essentially, you can read that way now. And the function that we're working on here is round. And basically, it's rounding it. All right. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, I'm just introducing you to these now. We will go over them more next week. All right. With me so far? Everyone still awake? All right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so multi-row functions or group functions, once again, they take many rows and they create one nice output. The rows input may be the whole table or tables, split into smaller groups. So an example of a multi-row function is a max. You want to find the highest value of a column. The min, you want to find the lowest value. An average, you didn't know this was going to be a math scenario, but those three are a good example of a multi-row function. So here we want to bring back the number of rows in our employees table. So count, even though that wasn't on that list, count is considered a multi-role function, especially count star. And I'm throwing this at you right away because this you want to use this. So in some instances, you want to know the number of rows in a complete table, and you may just want to just leave that as a result. We all know that we have 20 rows in our little abbreviated employees table, 20 employees. So count, and that's just an alias. And then here's one, average salary of our employees. So you see that it's taking the whole table and it's averaging all the salaries, 8,775, right? Make sense? So remember,
Yeah.
one result, the whole table. All right, so don't worry about understanding those. There's plenty of resources. We're going to dig into them more. The group functions, they have certain requirements that you need to be aware of. But this is a good introduction to get you started. All right, so our terminology, single role, multiple role functions. Woohoo. All right. So what are you responsible for today? Let's jump right into it. Yeah, where is my? Oh, there it is. Okie dokie. All right, we're on week 3 and for module 3. Our lecture will go there. We have some nice videos in here, as usual. The work more for the where clause, order by, and mostly that's all you need to concern yourself. I'm pretty sure as far as the assignment I made, I don't think you have anything that's really highly complicated. Resources. All right. And then your practice queries. How many of you are taking advantage of these practice queries? If you're not, you should. All of you should be plugging these into the SQL developer, making sure you understand the results. But it'll truly help you, and it will prepare you for the quizzes and the assignments. So please take advantage of that. All of these, I arduously check them just to make sure they're applicable. And then the practice and solutions assignments, once again, if you go through these, basically the homework will be a whiz. Should not be any problem. That's the reason why I put these in here. And I'll say again, like even the little practice testing activities, make sure you understand why the answers are what they are. You'll definitely see them either in a quiz or something down the line. So please go through those. It's very beneficial. And each of the sections are associated with one of these, and you probably notice that a lot of the homework for the assignments will come, not always, but will come from these practice questions. And then we have one assignment due this week. I'm really glad that you all are doing a pretty good job of going through these. I don't think anyone is having a lot of problems or many problems understanding what I'm asking for and creating the results accordingly. I don't think there's any requests in here that are outside of the parameters of your little table or little database. So once again, it's probably best to download it, add it to your desk, add it to your system, and take the screenshots of the SQL developer, which is, I love that I can check right away. Takes me a short amount of time, and submit that. And then once again, you do have a quiz. I'm not going to go through it now, but the intro to function section is just very general, because we haven't really gone over that, but there you go. I think that's it for this week. And yes, we have President's Day, so we will be meeting. I do have a recording from last semester in there, but I'll go ahead, and I was going to either leave it in there or if we decided that you didn't want to meet and you're like, well, you're just tired of the whole situation, because I'm going to go, it'll be the same for next week. But once again, we're going to dig into functions. We'll do a couple of exercises ourselves and go from there. Any comments or concerns or questions, or you're all doing,
No.
you're all doing very well. So keep up the good work. Well, I can make it a lot harder. Should I make it a lot harder? Y'all seem to be like, oh, this is easy. It'll get a little harder.
I do have one question on the aliases.
Go ahead.
So my points off on the quiz were because after I used the as statement, I put my title in single quotations, which I thought we used for strings. So, but it's supposed to be double, correct?
Right. So that's a very good question, Daniel. So in your aliases, if you can actually leave out any quotes, but if you have a space or anything like that, it has to be enclosed in double quotes. Now, the single quote is for a string, not as an alias. One of those rules. Whenever you have a string, like in your where clause, it has to be in single quotes. An alias has to be surrounded by double quotes. And especially if you have a space or any special characters, anything that needs to be read as a string, as far as an alias.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good question. Any other questions or concerns? How's everyone doing so far? So far, so good. You can become a database administrator right now, right?
I feel I'm at least understanding it. I get what
Good.
you're asking.
Well, the SQL is SQL. It takes a lot of practice, but and then the ability to interpret someone's needs and create the results accordingly is probably the biggest challenge. And when we get into manipulating tables and all that fun stuff, you just have to kind of remember all the rules and then you'll be fine.
I do have one last question if no one else has one.
Go ahead, Daniel.
So when you were showing the parentheses, almost like kind of math order of operations and parentheses and stuff inside the parentheses will get worked on first. Is that only in the where clause that you can use those?
No, but at this point in your journey, let's just restrict ourselves to the where clause. As far as conditional, the parentheses will be used in other ways as well, but at this point, yes, in the where clause.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. Good questions. You get to start for the day, Daniel.
Hey, I'm all for the gold stars.
All right, you get one for the day. I'm making a note of it. Okay. Not too bad so far. You've been able to tolerate it. Looking at the grades, you're not on the list of troublesome students, so thank you all for attending. Everyone else is kind of, well, let's just say, hopefully they'll be here next week. All right. Okay. That's all I have for this evening. Remember, if you have any questions or comments or things are not clear, just send me a Canvas message. And I even have myself in there somewhere. You can text me in the middle of the night. I won't respond because I go to bed early, but I will eventually respond. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, everyone. Thank you for your time. I will see you all next week. We will meet next week. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Have a good night.
Bye.
See ya.
Good night.
Thank you.